Alright guys, it's time to review the rest of the Christmas boxes of 2023. Sorry about the delay, but my computer basically got wiped and that set me back a little bit. But now we're here again. And let's start with the Technofreak box. And well, it's an interesting one. To talk about it fully, let me get a little off topic here. There's a video by a guy named Mushroom Man, and it's a critique on a lot of the story, theme, and design elements of ATF 8. And one of the big talks in it is the direction ATF is going in terms of sci-fi. And this is a big debate in the ATF community about how we are getting the very far future sci-fi like cyberpunk. And Chad actually left a comment on this video saying that ATF 8 was never intended to be like cyberpunk. And this is a massive can of worms for another video about how there are several contradictions to the statement in-game that open up another can of worms about the development process to this game that was so different from the previous games that caused everything to be so disjointed. However, to come all the way back around to the point of this video, we have the Technofreak box, and how it is a pretty strong direct contradiction to what Chad stated, specifically the Phoenix laser gun and the Cobra, now for some reason quietly renamed the Hornet prosthetics. And first, I'll talk about the Hornet/Cobra prosthetics. I think the concept is a cool idea and the execution was fine. I think we are desperately missing customization, at the bare minimum different blades. And I think the prosthetics themselves aren't that bad. In general here, the looks aren't what make this the over-the-top sci-fi, especially when you compare it to the old prosthetics of ATF 7. Instead, it's the concept itself, the idea of prosthetics being more than just limb replacement, that is the over-the-top sci-fi. This single concept opens up the debate of what else we can do with prosthetics. And this is very much like cyberpunk. In fact, there is a weapon very much similar to this inside cyberpunk. It shows that the direction of prosthetics is moving in a very cyberpunk way. How they go above and beyond what any human arm can do. How they are customizable with extra attachments to suit any need, which is completely unlike the prosthetics of ATF 7, which were rare to see and only had the function of just giving back your limbs. And this is not the direction Chad said he was going for. Then you have the Phoenix laser gun, which, to give it credit, it's not a bad model or anything. It's very cool looking and I can appreciate the shock reach on it. And they are finally giving the alumni some love with red colored laser guns. But unlike the prosthetics, this visually directly goes against what Chad says. Being an over-the-top, sci-fi, bulky, brightly colored gun with many glowing parts with no explanation. It is a cyberpunk gun. It is over-the-top sci-fi. That is why, all around, I don't like either of these items, especially the Phoenix laser gun, because they are muddying the waters with the theme of ATF. Specifically, they go pretty strongly against the whole desperate wastelander survival. But that again is another can of worms absolutely needed for another video. Lastly, there's the Brimstone, which unlike the first two, I'm kind of more okay with, because it takes a different approach to sci-fi, and that is the fun, silly sci-fi like that of Fallout, which is another whole can of worms when it comes to the similarities of ATF and Fallout. I know they always had their similarities, such as the whole power armor thing, but I think now there is some more over-the-top similarities and more subtle ones, such as a move for unconventional and wacky firearms, like the Brimstone, because the lore for it is it's a mining laser that people repurposed as a handheld weapon. And when pairing it with something like the Liftmax, which is an industrial exosuit specifically designed just to lift heavy objects, meaning you can actually wield an entire mining laser, it makes this weapon more plausible. I honestly enjoy the concept of the Brimstone a lot. I like to see the branching out with laser weapons and seeing more from the laser beam concept. So while not usable in most scenarios and pretty niche, I think if you were going for an industrial look, maybe even a mining droid, then I think you have yourself a weapon that will make you stand out. Now on to what I think is the most problematic box. The gift of Riot control. And the biggest issue with this box is that what you are getting from this box, in context to the fact that it is a large Christmas mystery box, and how all the items are pretty underwhelming, and I think undeserving of being in a Christmas box. I think they should have instead called this gift the Summer Rain Sampler, because the item you see that is supposed to be the figurehead of this box is nothing more than a recycled Summer Rain item, which I think recycling old ATF7 items is fine, but the fact that they have transferred from a free event to a paid box with no real power increase is the problem. First, I'll talk about the Keystone. The only thing I can think of is a Summer Rain item from ATF7. Its normal version is really unimpressive. It is literally just a shotgun, and it annoyingly comes with a wood pump and a wood grip, but not a wooden stock. I really wish they would just commit and give us full wood, because I would definitely think about using this item if it did have full wooden accessories. Also, when I look at its color, it makes me think like it's some shotgun for a security force with that silvery blue and that pretty small size. You could have definitely slipped this into a Summer Rain and nobody would have batted an eye. The only thing that stands out about it is the fact that it can be an underbarrel attachment, which, to be fair, the underbarrel part does make this box worthy, and I'm glad we finally got to see an underbarrel shotgun. However, the color of it is so standoutish that it doesn't pair well with most guns. We should have honestly seen this in a darker gray color, so it could have blended much better with other guns. And it's also just an absolute shame that you can't use the folding grip. Next, we have the Remachador L, which is a tactic-cooled pepperball gun that comes in black and red. I find this gun to be pointless. There's a reason why you don't see anyone use it. But again, just like a topic for another video, there are a lot of weapons that I'm calling niche role weapons. This can relate both to aesthetic and function, and this would be exactly one of these guns. Because I gotta ask you the question, if you're just some random Lacelander, why would you not use a regular gun? Like, think about it. Why would most people care about using less than lethal? There are so many downsides to using any sort of in-game less than lethal compared to literally just using a gun. I can sort of understand there being a reason to handicap yourself by giving yourself a less than lethal due to some moral issues, but unlike any of the lightning stun weapons, which can knock people out for almost 30 minutes, this is just a pepperball gun. It is such a huge handicap. The only people that would actually need something like this would be a faction member. But most of the factions lock them behind classes, roles, ranks, or even events. So this gun is pretty much useless to everyone and is going to be one of the many that fade away into the archives. But now onto the big ones here. First, the buzzsaw. And there is just so much wrong with this thing. This is actually a Halloween item from ATF7. Although it was a much more toned down version. However, because of that, I think they did a much better job with it. Because the new buzzsaw doesn't keep in theme with the industrial pale yellow. Instead, we got this weird pink salmon-y color. And then there's also the problem with this thing being so massive, which I'll get to in a second here. But another thing is that I don't think they went far enough with the scrap customization. Compared to the brimstone or even the nail gun, they only slapped a little rust texture here and there. Another major problem with this thing is they added no attack animation for this thing. They didn't even add an animation to your character to make it look like the thing was on. Like, look at this, it's literally just the idle animation. You don't even raise the buzzsaw up in front of you. You don't even look like you're fighting to keep the blade on target. You're just lazily swinging your arms back and forth. Also, when you spam run, it keeps playing the winding down sound. And back to what I was saying a little earlier ago, I have the question of, does it really need to be this big and bulky? It feels like they made the item around the animation instead of making the animation around the item. Like, I have to say, I really think they put no thought into this item, and it was just a way to maximize the usage out of the new heavy weapon animation. And lastly, we have the Riot shield, which the new systems they have for it are really exciting to see. The new linkage system is so much better than ATF7 when the shields only came with literally one specific gun, and the customization is decent. You get some color options, and you can change the viewport, adding glass and making it thicker. You can also add a light to the shield, which is not a bad concept, and I was honestly surprised by it when I saw it. One thing is I wish we got a much more scrappy version, like the shield from, I believe, the gold reward in ATF 7, but I'm not mad about it, because a scrap shield like that could definitely be just a different weapon, like they did in ATF 7. But now onto the real problems with the shield. In the ATF FAQ, they state that it can stop most pistol calibers and shotgun pellets. And if you check online, this is literally just level 3A, seeing as it is designed to stop 44 mag and can easily stop 12 gauge.
Well, there's the back of the vest, but that slug did not go through. It's still stuck in there. It was just concussion that burst this soda bottle.
While for ATF, they state that the shield only stops pellets. This is a minor change and doesn't really matter, because what this means is that this shield is only a single level above level 2, aka the free level of body armor allowed to be used by anyone. That is so underpowered for something that is in a large Christmas mystery box. Their reasoning for it was because it came in the gift of Riot control, and for a Riot, typically you don't need any more stopping power. But I find this to be a very lame excuse to underpower it, considering if they did probably bump it up to level 3 or something, I don't think anybody would have batted an eye. But don't worry, because it gets worse. Because when you go back to look at ATF 7, you will find the summer rain of 2020. And in the summer rain of 2020, you will find a police Riot shield in level 3A, aka they gave us an item that originally came from a free event and actually made it even worse than what it was when it was a free item. And understand that this is all on top of the fact that any sort of bullet resistant armor wasn't allowed in ATF 7 without approval. I know this is extreme and pretty harsh, but I will just have to come out here and say it, that I think this box was a complete ripoff. Almost all of what you get from this box is underpowered and unusable, making it not worth the $5 price tag. And this is unlike the Technofreak box. While yes, it goes against the themes and aesthetics of this game, most people are already embracing the cyberpunk aesthetic. So there is still some use for these items in this box. But this box has next to nothing of value. And finally, the super box. I'll start with the good, then get to the bad. So first off, the grenade types. Something I've been waiting on in ATF 8 for a while now. While all around solid items that make sense coming out of a super box, one of the major problems with all of them is the bounce. Because the higher you turn up the power, the bouncier they get. And it becomes frustrating to actually try and use them, because most of the time they'll just ricochet right back at you. Next, the FCA-64. This thing is a really cool rifle, and honestly I think it puts the Meridian to shame. The fact that you can change it from gel to regular bullets is perfect because it makes it more versatile. I also really like the different barrel and magazine options. It makes this gun more flexible and fits many roles for many different people. But I do have some complaints about it. It really needs universal stocks, or just more stocks. Second, it needs a 15-round magazine and a semi-auto option. And 3, the underbarrel attachments need to be moved back. And lastly, this gun needs more commitment to the scrap. What is the point of just making the rail a little rusty and then also just only giving it a scrap handguard, but then doing nothing else with it? You don't even get a scrap stock, not even a scrap body. It makes the scrap handguard kind of just useless. And lastly, we have the SWR-5. This thing is a sweet looking railgun, I can't lie. And this is what the Vostok should have been. And I think honestly makes it completely useless. To me, it's basically a reimagining of the Vostok with that side-loading low-capacity magazines and the 3x multi-zoom scopes, and both of them being long-range anti-material sniper rifles. But I think it is a good testament to how far we've gone even in the game when it comes to the quality of the models. Seeing this also does make me pray they go back and revamp all the old stuff so it can actually compete. And with all of that out of the way, now onto the messy. First, the Smith DES. Now, I really like the look of this gun, and the customization is pretty solid. The problem lies with the function of the gun, because it has the bullet splash of a gel gun, has the muzzle flash of a regular firearm, but is actually supposed to be a Gauss gun. And if you look at any other Gauss gun firing, it's completely different in almost every way, from bullet splash to firing sound to muzzle flash. Now, for the many that probably don't know this, the reason I know it's supposed to be a Gauss gun and not a gel is because of several reasons. One, it's a handgun from ATF 5. The concept of gel is an ATF 8 thing. 2, there is a muzzle attachment that says Gauss suppressor. 3, the muzzle and the long-range customization have to do with the power of the gun, which a gel gun doesn't need because it still uses a propellant. And 4, because the gun designer literally said so. Yeah, I kind of wasted your time with the first 3, but I just wanted to show where the context clues were pointing. Anyway, now the question comes up, how did they let it release like this? This is something that absolutely should have been caught and fixed before release. Now, there's either 2 reasons. 1, it slipped past all the checks, and that leads to a lot of questions about what is going on behind the scenes. Or they did a classic release it now, finish it later strategy. And I'd say on a free seasonal event where they need to release it in a proper time frame, I would say that this would be fine. But in a paid for box with no set in stone time limit other than their own, and the super box no less, that kind of decision is questionable at best. Now onto the much bigger problems with the super box. And I'm getting off topic again here. So same Mushroom Man video, same Chad's comment, but instead we're talking about the radio. To keep it quick, Mushroom Man thinks it's too positive and doesn't fit. Chad's response is it's supposed to be that way because of the whole, indomitable human spirit thing, yada, yada, yada. Important thing to take away about all of that is that the radio is supposed to represent the human spirit prevailing through the worst of times and the worst of conditions, and this is greatly reflected in the deep Wintertide event. When resources are getting low, people can barely survive, and they are doing anything they can to cling on to life just to make it one more day in the hopes that oh hey, a minigun. Yeah, if you thought too much sci-fi was a bad thing, this is just a slap to the face against the theme. It's one of the main reasons I don't like the tactical, but that's for another video. The fact that this minigun exists at all puts a lot of things in terms of theme and direction of this game into question, and it's all for the worst. It firstly just goes against the entire theme of desperation and isolation. If people on this nothing island have access to miniguns, it tells me that everything is smooth sailing and resources are aplenty and imports are clearly flowing in. The other thing it does is go against the serious aspect of ATF, because ATF has a lot of dark topics and themes in it that you don't find in many other roleplay games, such as drugs, racism, and even just dying. And I don't think I need to tell you this, but it's been picked apart a ton how using a handheld minigun is completely impractical and not combat effective. And just like the butt shot, you don't even react to this thing firing. You still just lazily swing your arms back and forth like nothing is going on. This also puts something onto display, specifically in the super box, that has started becoming a problem, and it's power creep. Power creep in the super box is a very much real thing, and the minigun and even some of the other stuff in the box is proof of it. But let me take you through the timeline. First super box, first ever automatic rifle. Second super box, first ever belt-fed machine gun. Third super box, minigun. First super box, sniper railgun. Second super box, 50 BMG sniper rifle, which may sound like a step down, but when you look at the comparison to the real-life caliber of the Vostok, you can see the difference. Third super box, even bigger railgun. While we don't know the caliber yet, we can make some sort of good inference by directly comparing it to the magazine of the 50 BMG rifle, and you can see that it is just about the exact same size. And the thing about it is, unlike a conventional firearm, it doesn't need propellant. All it needs is the projectile part, which most likely means that it is the same size, if not bigger, than 50 BMG, even if we go off just that second inner gray layer of the magazine. And this is all on top of the fact that this projectile is going 4 times faster than a regular firearm. And the same can be said with the cars. Even if we only have 2, we started with a pickup truck, now we have a 6-wheeler. I also don't like this truck at all style-wise. It screams a military vehicle, and it even spawns with a default green color. It's just like another USRF spoon feed. And trying to use the customization makes my brain hurt. There had to be a better way to do this to make this more clear and fluid. I believe we should honestly be getting cars more closer in theme to ATF-7, such examples being the Salvo and the Highway Interceptor. And yeah, that's Christmas of 2023 so far. I know we're waiting on the Omega and most of the props are out, but since these are experimental features, I'm going to be waiting forever for those to drop. So I thought I'd get this out of the way now, and I'll probably do the props with the Omega box because these videos are already insanely long. And if it isn't obvious, I'll be doing a video on the guns of ATF and how they are an important tool at reflecting the theme and atmosphere of ATF and how they are just all over the place. And I will of course be doing a video on Summer Rain, but I am just basically waiting for the expansion of Summer Rain to drop. And also, completely unrelated, but with the new biomass thing, I'm definitely thinking about doing a 3rd video on mutants in ATF 8. Also, if anybody's wondering, I had to wipe my computer because I did an update and the thing got bit locked and I had no idea what my Microsoft account even was. So I just couldn't get the bit key and I just lost like a bunch of files needed specifically for this video. So it set me back a little bit. But let me know what you guys think about all the items and my opinion about them. And yeah, I'll see y'all around.